Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for being here. If you're new to my channel, please kindly subscribe and turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss any of our tutorials. So today I want to share with you guys how to make this asymmetric peplum. It's very easy to make, and I'll share with you guys today the quick tip on how to make this fast and easy. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial proper. So I'm going to start off with measuring out the fabric I'm going to be using to cut this. Just as you measure out the fabric to cut out your circle skirt, for me, I usually start off by folding out a square of equal sides. So to do this, the first thing I determine is the circumference of the waist I'm marking for. Then on the chart, I will find out the radius of the waistline. Now for the model I'm using, the circumference of the waistline is 26 inches. So by the chart, the radius of the waistline ought to be 418, but I'm not going to be marking 418. And that is because I want to create more volume for plates around the waistline area. So instead of marking the radius of 26 inches, I'm going to take the radius of 36 inches, approximate it to 6 inches. So the radius I'm using here is 6 inches. Then the length of the peplum I want to mark is 9 inches, which includes the seam allowance for lining and for joining to the upper part of the peplum, which is the bodice. So what I'm going to do now is to add 9 inches to 6 inches, which is 15 inches. Then I'm going to times that by 2, multiply it by 2, which is 15 by 2, 30 inches. So now 30 inches is going to be the length of each side of the square. That is the 4 sides of the square. So I'm going to use this paper to describe to you how to do this, okay? So now, after measuring out your square of equal sides, the next thing you have to do right now is to fold this square into 4. As you can see right now, you fold it into 4. And after folding it, the next thing I did is to indicate the closed-ended area, which is right here, and the open-ended area, which is right here, as you will do when you are cutting out a circle skirt. Now I'm going to measure out the radius of the waistline along this area. And for this illustration, assuming the radius of the waistline you're going to be using is 6 inches, the same as I did, you're going to measure it all around this closed-ended area. And don't mind the measurement I'm using. This is just an illustration for the beginners. So you place your tape at the tip area and you measure the radius out. Then from there, I'm going to measure out the 15 inches. This is just an illustration on the screen, but just know that you're measuring out all around according to the length of the skirt. So now this is where the trick starts. Now you have done this, you go over to the open-ended area. I'm going to count out 3 plies like this, and that is what I'm going to cut. As you can see, you're just going to cut 3, leaving 1 underneath. So guys, you just make sure that you don't cut the whole 4, because if you cut the whole 4, you end up with a normal round circle skirt. So now as you can see how it looks like, I cut off the waistline as well. And now I'm going to flip it to the other side where I didn't cut the lower part. And the next thing you are going to do is to indicate the midpoint of the circle skirt right here. And after you must have done that, you're going to mark a straight line to the tip of the paper right there. Now this becomes an indication of a center front. Now I'm going to open this up. Now the next thing I'm going to do right now is to mark in the actual length of the peplum, which is 9 inches in my case. So what I'm going to do right now is to measure from this point downwards 9 inches to wherever it ends in order to tally with the rest of the peplum. So I'm going to measure out 9 inches right here at the center front. As you can see, I've done that already. Then next I'm going to smoothly connect this into the other sides of the peplum. And when you're done, this is what it should look like. And note that we are working on the right side of our fabric. So right now I'm going to fold this in through from the part of the center front area, and by this I'm just going to determine the center back of the peplum. So right now I'm going to notch this area and mark it all through to indicate the center back. So now the first thing I'm going to do now is to cut through this point, this center front area. Now I'm going to cut out this excess underneath right here, and next I'm going to cut out the center back. And this is what your pattern should look like, or fabric, after cutting. Now I'm going to show you the one I cut on my fabric. It looks exactly like this, and this is the right side of my fabric. So now onto the sewing part. So now the first thing I did was to place my lining on the right side of my fabric, and I'm going to stitch by 1/2 inch underneath this area all through to the center back area right here. And note, I'm not going to be stitching at this point right here. It's going to be left open, and this point also I won't stitch on it also. Now the next thing I did was to secure my flare, which is by stitching the 1/2 inch seam allowance onto the lining, as you can see, all around the bottom part of the peplum. And the next thing I'm going to do is to turn this to the right side of the fabric. Now after I did that, the next thing I did was to stitch the lining onto the main fabric all along these areas right here. So now I'm going to prepare the bias for this particular part of the peplum. And now to sew on the bias, I'm going to use a 1/2 inch bias. I'm going to stitch it all around the bottom part of this peplum, and I used the double stitch, as you can see right here. After the first stitch, I gave it a second stitch all around the peplum area. Now, sorry guys, I lost the original clip of this tutorial, but I'm going to use this as an illustration to show you how to further stitch this. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is to join this right side to each other to the other side of the peplum. Then you're going to place the lining of the other part of the peplum onto these two, and next thing you're going to do right now is to stitch this point and all around the bottom part of the lower peplum, making sure that you are not catching the one you put inside while you stitch. Now after stitching this all around, I'm going to cut off this pointed side of the tip area, and I'm going to notch all around the lower part of the peplum before I turn this to the right side of the fabric. So now the next thing I did here is to stitch the lining to the main fabric all around this area and towards the center back area. Now after doing this, the next thing you are going to do is to place your bias along this midpoint to 1 centimeter before the end of the pointed area, and you're going to double stitch it just as you did for the other part. Now for the other part of the peplum, the bias I'm going to be starting off with, I sharpened up the tip right here to reduce bulkiness when I'm going to sew it onto the lower part of the peplum. So as you can see, what I did was to press off like 1/2 inch from that pointed area, and I'm going to fold it like this before I place it at the tip of my peplum area. As you can see here, I've pinned this already. So the next thing I'm going to do is to further stitch this as I did for the other parts of the peplum and sew on the upper bodies, and my blouse is ready. So guys, as you can see, while I was stitching the peplum onto the main bodies, I pleated the excesses I created at the radius part of the waistline onto the actual waistline of the bodies to create the fullness, as you can see right there. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it so far, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And if you are yet to subscribe, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.